Hello, this is Jason P. Wilson Zero in X-Force, and this is my Marvel, DC, and Independent Comic pull list for the week of February 8th, 2012, and today is the 9th. It is a Thursday. And first up here are my Marvels, and first up for my Marvels is one of my favorite Marvels, and that is Wolverine and the X-Men, and this is issue number 5. Now, I was so happy to pick up my comics yesterday, and to have every single one of my comics all on time, because that has not been the case whether it's been Diamond or my comic store. Something that's happened to the point where some of my comics, especially this one, I have not gotten on time. In fact, I had just read recently number 4, so being able to read number 5 so quickly afterwards was a nice treat. And this was absolutely what I think is one of the best Wolverine and the X-Men to come out so far, and that's saying a lot because they all have been great. But for me, what made this comic just that much more special is all the comics have good humor, great humor. All the comics have a fantastic art style and good action and really good character development. But for me, the way that the subtle humor was sprinkled out so perfectly through this entire comic just made this such a special comic and such a fun read. And of course, we get to find out if Kitty Pryde is really pregnant, and if she is, with what. And when you find out what it is horrific and a little bit hilarious. So this comic is something special. And after reading number 5, I thought to myself, you know what? When the first story arc comes out on trade, this would be an absolutely perfect comic to give to somebody who doesn't really read comics, or maybe wants to but just isn't, or maybe someone who hasn't been following X-Men at all. This is an absolute perfect book to give the people who aren't necessarily reading comics right now. It is a comic that I think absolutely anybody could pick up and read and enjoy the heck out of it. And when the first story arc comes out for this particular comic run, I am definitely going to be giving it to nephews and friends and nieces to really share a really special and fun comic. Wolverine and the X-Men is a great read. Number 5 is my favorite one so far. And next up is The Incredible Hulk, number 5. Now, before we get into this, I do want to bring an issue up, and that is the art difference versus the first 3 issues, and now with the last 2. First of all, the first 3 issues. The first 3 issues done by Mark Silvestri, hope I said that right, were some of the most beautiful comics that I have ever read, especially with the Hulk. And those first 3 issues were absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. Loved the art style. It was almost like a Michael Turner-ish type Hulk. The character designs, everything, combined with a fantastic story written by Jason Aaron, was perfect. And I loved it with my whole heart and was extremely surprised as well. Starting with the last issue, though, the artwork was now being handled by Wallace Portico. Ooh, hope I said that one right. But now look, Wallace, I thought did issue number 4 fine, and I thought it worked. I was disappointed about the art style difference and the vast difference between them. I didn't really mention that in the last review when I reviewed number 4, mainly because I didn't want to distract from people picking up the book and reading a really great run and a really good story written by Jason Aaron. But now with the second issue with the new artist, Wallace, I have to say this book was even more distracting than the last. I really didn't think number 4 was too distracting. I definitely was disappointed, but I thought it was good enough to the point where it wouldn't like throw you off. But with this issue number 5, which is actually one of my favorite written issues so far, the art style to me was even more drastic change. It's the same artist as last issue. It's just handled more, I don't know, I thought it was sloppier. Now, if I had this artist from issue number 1, I probably wouldn't say anything because it's still a good art style, and it definitely can work, especially at times. But when you compare it to the first 3 issues, which were so drop dead gorgeous that I'd actually go back and just look at the panels again, it's definitely a huge difference. And if you were to pick up this trade, you might be a little disappointed because you're reading and you go through the first 3 issues and it's just so beautiful, and then the 4th one's not as well drawn, and then 5 comes along and it's almost seems ugly in comparison to the first 3. So that is my major negative about this book. Now, that's not to say that I'm negative about this book at all. I still love this issue. I thought it was one of the best written ones so far. We also get to find out what happens with the Hulk and Bruce Banner, and how they were separated, and more shockingly, who was the one who separated them, which was a big surprise for me. I didn't really see this character at all coming into this, so that was a kind of nice twist. And also, when you find out how these two were separated, it brings up the question, well then, is the crazy Bruce Banner really Bruce Banner? I don't think he is. He's not then. So that means Hulk is still Bruce. A little confusing? No, not really. Not once you read this. It's a great issue and a really well written one. My major complaint is just the art style. The first 3 done by Mark being so absolutely beautiful, and then the last 2 done by Wallace, not so much. Again, number 4 was not distracting, but I felt number 5, especially at times, was very distracting. And again, this is one that I would definitely say was a must pick up on trade. With the drastic difference in art, I still think I'll be recommending it, just not as wholeheartedly. Yet still a good comic, and it's definitely one of the best being put out by Marvel. I'm really curious though, when this story comes to a wrap up, this first story arc, if they're going to have Mark come back, or they're going to let Wallace end this story arc, and if they're going to have Mark come back at all, because I absolutely love his art style in this comic. Alright, and next up here is the much anticipated number 50 of Deadpool, part 1 of Dead. Now, I've been reading Deadpool for a while, and I'm really used to very different art styles that come out, and usually it's a very different wacky art styles, and it works perfect with this character because he is a character that type of artist would probably be drawn to, because he's so fun to probably write and draw for, and he's definitely always fun to read. So when I heard about this Dead storyline coming up, I thought that it was going to be handled in a very campy, very Deadpool classic funny type way. But I was actually pleasantly surprised when I opened up this issue, and it ended up being an absolutely well-drawn and serious tone for the most part with Deadpool. Now, it's definitely still Deadpool. It's very funny. It's very Deadpool-y. So don't be afraid about that. It's definitely fun. But at the same time, it's much more serious in its tone than the story arcs of the most recent past from Deadpool. So after reading this issue, I was actually really blown away. I really found myself really being excited for this story arc. And after getting done reading the first part, I was really anxious to read the rest of them. So I really can't wait till number 51 comes out. And this is definitely a great time to jump on the Deadpool. This is definitely going to be a special story arc. I ended up picking up an extra issue to give to my nephew, Ashton. Ashton, if you're watching this, yes, I picked you up one. You will definitely love this comic. But I definitely recommend anyone out there who hasn't been reading Deadpool, or maybe jumps on and off, kind of like what I do, definitely pick up number 50. It's a must read for any and all Deadpool fans. And I would also say if you read Uncanny X-Force, it's also a must read. And that is my Marvel. And next up are my DCs. And first up here is Batman and Robin number 6. Now, before we get into this, I do want to say, for those of you who read the last volume with Dick Grayson, with him being with Damian Wayne, and you read through that whole volume, and you had some of the best comics ever written with Batman and Robin involved in that volume, and then when they restart the series, and now it's Bruce and Damian, and you were like kind of put off that they kind of reset Damian a little bit, even though it made sense. He hadn't been with his dad in this type of team up, you know, like this in an ongoing, so it was important to have bratty Damian present there and have them build a relationship like, you know, like he did with Dick. But at the same time, Dick Grayson's a completely different person than Bruce is, and a lot easier person to get along with. So all that made sense, all the problems they were having with their relationship. But still, like a lot of you, I also felt I kind of missed those real emotional issues that you had with the last volume with Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne that really built their relationship. It was so well written, and some of those issues are some of the best ones done. That I was really waiting for that type of issue to come out. And with the first 5 issues, they were good, but they weren't at that level yet. For those of you, I'm happy to say, finally with issue number 6, we get that issue. This is definitely by far the best Batman and Robin to come out for this new run, and I am really pleased to say that I am really happy that it did. This was a great Batman and Robin, a really, really good read, and I would like to say something about the review that Ghost Critic put out. I read this and then watched his review, and I when you mentioned Ghost Critic, the part where there was the panel that was really heartfelt, I knew exactly what you were talking about, because I felt exactly the same way when I got to that panel. This is definitely a great issue to connect with Damian Wayne and kind of see a glimpse of the superhero or the individual that he can be in the future. In fact, you almost see, like, if he ended up becoming Batman at some point, that he definitely has that potential to be that type of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and that was nice to see. Definitely a really, really well written and well done comic book, and my favorite Batman and Robin to come out so far of these first 6. An excellent read, and I am definitely excited to read number 7. And next up here for my DCs is Batwoman number 6. Now, something does need to be said real quick, and that is there is a new artist, and this artist is Amy Reeder, and she is illustrating the ongoing at this point with Batwoman. Now this makes sense. Now of course we still have the main team. J.H. Williams III is of course the writer, but you know, his artwork is so good when he writes and pencils. The issues in the first 5 obviously were done by Williams. It was like you were reading a work of art, and you were reading like a stained glass painting. That's what it felt like most of the time. It was absolutely some of the best artwork I've ever seen in a comic book, DC or Marvel. And with this new artist, I was a little worried because even though I've seen Amy Reeder before and I really do like her art style, it was just, you know, especially after some of the Hulk stuff, I was really not sure what I was going to get. I saw the cover, and of course the cover is done by Williams, and I was thinking, oh, I just wish this is done by Williams. Then I opened up the book, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, It is by no means as good, in my opinion, as Williams, but still, I think Reader does a really good job. I think the colorist also great. It is definitely more cartoony or comic booky than I'm used to with Batwoman, but I still enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought the artwork was good. I thought it was crisp enough. It was actually a little more brilliant with its coloring than I'm used to with Williams, because Williams likes a little bit a different texture, and the colors are definitely not as bright as some other comics are, but it works perfect because it's Williams, and it is perfect. So it's nice that since they knew a lot of people would probably be worried a little bit, because anyone that reads Batwoman loves J.H. Williams' art, that they wanted to make sure that Amy Reeder got her style across, and I enjoyed it. I don't, of course, prefer it over Williams in any stretch of the imagination, but you can't have Williams do it all the time. That's probably just too much, and we want this book to come out every month. So I thought Amy Reeder did a great job, and if there's anyone else that's going to be doing this book with Williams, I think I would like it to be Reeder. Still, a great comic, and the story at this point is really well done. In fact, we get to see some really cool tech stuff involved with her Batsuit. Of course, now with Batman Incorporated and everything, she's got money behind her. So there's some really cool things with that. And by the way, some fantastic panels in here. And if she wasn't coming after Williams, who I think is the master, I would say this is some of the best artwork around on any Bat book. But after Williams, there's definitely a difference. Still, Amy Reeder is doing a great job, I think, and this is an absolute great book. Now, up to this point, I have said only fantastic things, with the exception of maybe the artwork from Incredible Hulk. Still, they were all really good comics. So, I really like having these small stacks that are really high quality books, and I think it's a combination of good choices that I'm making, as well as a little bit of luck. So with these shorter stacks that I'm picking up on a weekly basis, sometimes I'll pick up something else that maybe I wasn't in my saver. And one of those was Batgirl. Now I pulled this out of my saver for the reasons that I mentioned before. I love the character. I love Gail Simone. I just wasn't feeling this book. But when number 6 came out, it was there on the shelf, so I went ahead and grabbed it. And while I was reading this, the first thing I thought was, man, I'm still not into this. I love Barbara Gordon. I really like Gail Simone, so I wasn't sure why I just wasn't enjoying this book. And I think what it is there's so many great books out there by DC and Marvel and Image that this really is probably on the bottom of a lot of people's stacks. Still, I wanted to read it. I wanted to see what they're doing with this whole Batman thing, so I read it. And, well, I was almost to the end, and I thought, okay, you know what? It's not a bad book. It's just not at the height of some of the books I'm reading now. So I have no problem, not picking this up anymore when I see it on the shelf. And then I got to the next, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was, it was over, and it said next issue, revisiting the Joke or something like that. And it was a reference to obviously the Joker and probably the Killing Joke, which is of course connected to Barbara Gordon being shot. And as soon as I read that, I thought, oh crap, now I'm going to have to read the next story arc, because if they're going to involve the Joker, and or if this is going to be a revisiting of what happened to her with the Killing Joke, well then I have to read it, because that was a point that they kind of just brushed over quickly in I think it was the first issue, and a lot of people really wanted them to visit that and really explain it. So that means they're either going to be doing that, or it's going to be a story involving the Joker, which would probably be the first time she's really faced him in this new story timeline since then. So I'm not going to put it in my saver, but I guess I will be picking up the next issue at least. Even though I'm not digging Batgirl right now, even though I want to, I guess I'm in it for another issue. And next up is another book, after reading such great books, just, falls a little flat. And that is number 5 of the Huntress. Now, this is number 5 of 6. And when I first read the first 3 issues, I was thinking, man, I'm really enjoying this. It's too bad it's not an ongoing series. And then I got 4 and now 5, and it's kind of losing its steam. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? This is probably a good idea to only be a limited run. If you love the Huntress, you definitely should be reading this. It's very important. It establishes her character for the story arc. If you don't like the Huntress and never really got her, well, this isn't going to do anything for you. You're not going to love the Huntress now after reading this limited run. If you read Bat books and you're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out with the Huntress, maybe you read a little bit of Birds of Prey before and liked it, well, then this might be worth picking up because, again, it definitely establishes who the Huntress is in this new DCU, what her purpose is, and what kind of hero she is. Now, it's also a different flavor than your average Bat book. This is definitely part of the Bat family, but it's more of along the lines of like Red Hood, like on the outskirts of the Bat family. Definitely worth the read if you're one of those people. But if you don't really care for her, this isn't going to make you care for her. I would say it was a good idea to introduce the Huntress this way, because as an ongoing series, I can't see this lasting very long. It definitely would be getting long in the tooth. But still, I'm enjoying it, and I am looking forward to seeing how they're going to wrap this up. And last but not least is my only image that I picked up. And that is the fantastic conclusion to a fantastic run, and that is Severed number 7. Now, of course, this is Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft, and this is put out by Image. And this has been a absolutely classic, great masterwork of comic book greatness since issue 1. And anyone who's a Scott Snyder fan, maybe you're a Scott Snyder fan from American Vampire, maybe you're a fan from Swamp Thing or Batman, wherever you read Scott Snyder, you need to be reading or have read Severed. Now, obviously, this is a conclusion. I don't want to say too much. I will say, for those of you who read it, we really get an idea of why it was called Severed in this issue. I won't say anything more, but a really satisfying conclusion. For me, I really liked how it ended. In fact, at the very end, there's almost like an opening that there may be down the line another run of Severed. Definitely a great comic book, and this is absolutely Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft at their very best. An absolutely must read. In fact, on the back of this comic, there's an advertisement for this Severed story arc coming out in hardback, and I will absolutely be at the front of the line picking up a hardback. In fact, my eldest nephew is into these type of books, Walking Dead type storylines, and this is one that I know that he will be loving. So, Kyle, if you're out there and you're watching this, I definitely will be picking this up for you. Severed is an absolutely perfect masterpiece of horror, and in every bit as good as especially the first story arc of American Vampire. Anything that you like of Scott Snyder, this is absolutely some of his best work. And with that, those are my comics for the week. I would like to throw a few questions for you out there. First of all, were you as put off as I was when they switched artists in Incredible Hulk? Or did you guys not care at all? Also, for the Batman and Robin, did you guys think that was just the issue that you were waiting for? And with Batwoman, I loved the artwork, but were you guys put off at all the difference between Williams and Reader? And then finally, for those of you who have read Severed, did you love it as much as I did? I'd love to hear from you guys. And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.